Lawyer shoots himself. On June 17, 1871, defense attorney Clement Vallandigham was in Lebanon, Ohio, preparing for the biggest moment of his murder trial. His client, Thomas McGeehan, was charged with shooting a man dead during a barroom brawl on Christmas Eve the previous year. Vallandigham's defense was simple and clever. He believed the victim had shot himself accidentally while drawing a pistol from his coat pocket. To prove it, he planned a courtroom demonstration. That evening, Vallandigham gathered his defense team in his hotel room at the Lebanon house to rehearse. Two revolvers sat on the table. One was loaded, one was not. He explained the theory, reached for what he believed was the unloaded pistol, placed it in his coat pocket, and acted out the motion of drawing it. The gun discharged into his abdomen. He sank into a chair and reportedly said, "I have foolishly shot myself." Surgeons were summoned immediately. They probed for the bullet, which they believed had lodged near the bladder, but were unable to locate it. His body was packed in ice through the night. He died of peritonitis the following day. The demonstration had worked. Despite Vallandigham's death, the jury found Thomas McGeehan not guilty. He walked out of court a free man. 4 years later, McGeehan was shot to death in his own saloon, Daredevil and the Peel. On July 25, 1911, Bobby Leach became the first man in history to survive going over the Horseshoe Falls at Niagara in a steel barrel of his own design. The barrel fell 167 feet. Leach survived with 2 broken kneecaps, a fractured jaw, and several broken ribs. He spent 6 months in hospital and then spent years touring the world with the battered barrel, giving lectures about his feat. He was known for defying death. He attempted to swim the Whirlpool Rapids below the falls in his 60s and had to be rescued more than once. Nothing killed him. On February 26, 1926, Leach was 69 years old and on a speaking tour in Auckland, New Zealand. He was walking near his flat on Princess Street when he slipped on an orange peel and broke his leg. The leg became infected. Gangrene set in. The leg was amputated. He died of complications on April 28, 1926. A New Zealand newspaper's obituary quoted a colleague who remarked that having defied death 100 times, he at last owed his end to a piece of orange peel. His gravestone in Auckland's Hillsborough Cemetery reads, "World famous by his trip over Niagara Falls in a barrel." Electric chair, toilet edition. In 1983, Michael Anderson Godwin was convicted of murder in South Carolina and sentenced to die in the electric chair. His attorneys appealed, and the death sentence was overturned. His sentence was reduced to life imprisonment at the Central Correctional Institution. By the accounts of prison officials, Godwin spent his remaining years as a model prisoner. He earned 2 college degrees and hoped to eventually be released on parole to work with young people. He was 28 years old on March 5, 1989. That evening, he sat naked on the steel toilet in his cell, attempting to repair a pair of earphones connected to his plugged-in television set. He bit into the electrical wire. The metal commode completed the circuit. Godwin was electrocuted. Corrections officers found him dead during a routine check. Richland County Coroner Frank Barron noted that Godwin's mouth and tongue were severely burned. The death was ruled an accident. State Corrections spokesman Francis Archibald confirmed the circumstances in a brief statement. It was a strange accident. He was sitting naked on a metal commode. The same method of execution he had once been sentenced to serve in a controlled setting had now found him in a prison cell, delivered by a television repair job in a steel toilet. Drowned at lifeguard party. In August 1985, the New Orleans Recreation Department threw a party for its lifeguards. The occasion was significant. It was the first summer season in living memory in which not a single person had drowned in any of the city's public pools. The celebration was held at the New Orleans Recreation Department Center. Approximately 200 people attended. About half of the guests were lifeguards, and 4 of them remained officially on duty throughout the event. Jerome Moody, 31 years old, was among the guests. He was not a lifeguard. He had not been swimming. He was fully clothed. At the end of the night, the 4 on-duty lifeguards began clearing the pool. They found Moody's body at the bottom of the deep end. They pulled him out and attempted to revive him. They could not. Coroner Frank Minyard confirmed via autopsy that Jerome Moody had drowned. How he entered the pool undetected at a party attended by roughly 100 trained lifeguards, 4 of whom were on duty, was never established. Department Director Madeline Richard confirmed the circumstances in a statement to the press. "The lifeguards were really upset," she said. "It's a real tragedy." This was the first annual party in memory where they could celebrate a trouble-free season. Window strength guaranteed. On the evening of July 9, 1993, Gary Hoy was hosting a reception on the 24th floor of the Toronto Dominion Bank Tower for prospective articling students interested in joining his law firm, Holden Day Wilson. Hoy was 38 years old, a corporate and securities law specialist, and by all accounts a respected and well-liked member of the firm. He had a party trick. He would demonstrate the tensile strength of the building's windows by throwing his full body weight against the glass. He had done it many times before without incident. The glass had always held. That evening, Hoy made his first run at the window. The glass held. He made his second run. This time, the glass did not break. Instead, the window frame gave way. Hoy and the intact window fell 24 floors into the courtyard below. He was killed on impact. Police arrived to find the glass still unbroken. Structural engineer Bob Greer told the Toronto Star, "I don't know of any building code in the world that would allow a 160-pound man to run up against a glass window and withstand it." Police classified the death as accidental auto-defenestration. 3 years later, Holden Day Wilson closed its doors, with Hoy's death cited as a contributing factor in the firm's collapse. Scourge falls quietly. By the year 453, Attila the Hun was the most feared military leader in the known world. He had brought the Eastern and Western Roman empires to their knees, extracted enormous tributes from Constantinople, and driven Roman forces from the Balkans and Italy. He was known to his enemies as Flagellum Dei, the Scourge of God. In early 453, he took his last wife, a young woman named Ildiko, and celebrated the marriage with a night of feasting and heavy drinking at his palace in Pannonia, in what is now Hungary. His guards became concerned when he failed to emerge the following morning. They broke down the door. They found Attila dead in his bed, his face and body covered in blood, with Ildiko weeping at his side. There were no wounds. Roman historian Priscus, a diplomat who had personally dined with Attila, recorded the account. Attila had suffered a massive hemorrhage, most likely a nosebleed brought on by heavy drinking, and choked on his own blood while lying on his back in a stupor. Some historians have proposed ruptured internal blood vessels as an alternative cause, brought on by years of excessive alcohol consumption. Assassination theories involving Ildiko exist, but have no direct supporting evidence. The man who had terrorized 2 empires was found dead in his own bed, bled out in the night. He was approximately 47 years old. Dancer's last exit. On the evening of September 14th, 1927, American dancer Isadora Duncan stepped into an open-top Amilcar sports car in Nice, France, owned by Benoit Falchetto, a French-Italian mechanic. She was 50 years old and widely regarded as the founder of modern dance. Before leaving, she wrapped a long hand-painted silk scarf around her neck. A friend staying with her that night, Mary Desty, had warned her about the scarf before she got into the car. Duncan dismissed the concern. The car pulled away from the curb. Almost immediately, the scarf became entangled in the rear, spoked wheel and axle of the vehicle. The force of the rotating wheel yanked the scarf with sudden violence. Duncan was pulled sideways out of the car and killed. Her neck was broken. The death was instantaneous. The day before, she had told a reporter from the Associated Press, "For the first time, I am writing for money. Now I am frightened that some quick accident might happen." She had spent her entire life in motion on stage, commanding her body with extraordinary precision. The instrument of her death was the same thing that had defined her career. She moved, and it killed her. Sigurd and the trophy. In approximately the late 9th century, according to the Orkney-Inga saga, Sigurd the Mighty, Earl of Orkney, met his death in the most unnecessary way imaginable. He had formed an alliance with Thorstein the Red and was consolidating control over parts of Scotland when a feud developed between him and a Scottish magnate named Malbright of Moray. The two sides met in battle. Sigurd won. Malbright was killed. In keeping with the customs of Norse warfare, Sigurd had the severed head of his defeated enemy strapped to his saddle as a trophy of victory. He rode north. As he traveled, Malbright's protruding teeth cut into Sigurd's leg. The wound seemed minor. It was not. The cut became infected. The infection spread. Sigurd the Mighty died from the wound. A Norse warrior who had carved territory out of Scotland, survived combat, and defeated his enemies in the field, was killed by the teeth of a man whose head he was carrying as a decoration. The Orkney-Inga saga records the death without particular irony. It simply states what happened. The outcome required no commentary from the author. Salute gone wrong. On December 12th, 1794, American sea captain John Kendrick was anchored in Honolulu Harbor in the Kingdom of Hawaii aboard his vessel, Lady Washington. He had just helped a local Hawaiian chief win a decisive battle against a rival, and the British vessel Jackal, under Captain William Brown, was present in the harbor. To mark the occasion and honor Kendrick, the Jackal's crew fired a ceremonial cannon salute. One of the cannons had been left loaded with grape shot. The shot tore through Kendrick's vessel and killed him on deck. Kendrick was dead from a salute fired in his honor by an Allied ship. The cannon had not been fired in anger, in battle, or in error of judgment about an enemy. It had been fired in celebration of a man who was then killed by it. John Kendrick had sailed the Pacific for years, becoming one of the first Americans to trade along the northwest coast and in Hawaii. He had survived the open ocean, foreign ports, and the hazards of 18th century maritime exploration. He did not survive a congratulatory cannon. king of the Semla. On February 12, 1771, Adolf Frederick, king of Sweden, sat down to a meal. The meal included lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, smoked herring, and champagne. For dessert, he ate semla, a traditional Swedish cream-filled wheat bun served in warm milk. He ate 14 of them. King Adolf Frederick was 60 years old and had ruled Sweden since 1751, though real political power during most of his reign rested with the Swedish parliament, leaving him with limited authority. History has not remembered him for his governance. Adolf Frederick died later that day of severe digestive complications following the meal. Swedish school children learn about him to this day. He is remembered in Sweden with a certain affectionate bluntness as the king who ate himself to death. The 14 servings of semla are always mentioned. He had managed to convert a throne, a crown, and decades of royal life into a footnote defined entirely by dessert. His death was confirmed February 12, 1771. He was succeeded by his son, Gustav III, who went on to accomplish considerably more before being shot at a masquerade ball. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.